Right, welcome everybody to this wonderful event. It's the Urban Design Certificate course run by Rob Beardsworth. For those who are listening online and watching online, welcome. I think we've got people from as far as Oxford and beyond. And in the room, there's about 30 people from Ireland, am I right? From York, from Essex. So we've got a really mixed group of people and a wonderful pair of speakers this evening. So welcome. This is it the second time the Urban Design Certificate course has been run, and there'll be another go at running it in the autumn in September. So if anybody online is interested in joining the course, do have a look at the, I think there should be a link on the Urban Design website. If not, send us an email and we'll try and get you sorted. First of the speakers this evening is Rob Cowan, who will be followed by Laura Alvarez, who will be followed by Rob Cowan, and talking about, is there a need for a professional institution to cover urban design? And then I think we can probably have a wild discussion, and people listening online, watching online, may be able to participate by putting questions or comments in chat on Zoom. So without further ado, let me introduce Mr. Rob Cowan, who's going to talk about his latest book, The 10 Principles. Is that right?
No.
No. He's not going to talk about anything like that.
10 is right.
I got the 10 right. Over to you, Rob.
And I must apologise for not wearing a tie. The Urban Design Group has one tie, and this evening it's Robert's turn to wear it. Sometimes I get to wear the Urban Design Group tie, but not tonight. Yes, that's us. I just thought 5 minutes. If I could say 10 things about urban design to you, which may be or may not be in my new book, Essential Urban Design, what might they be? First, a definition. Urban design is the process of planning for land use and of devising the physical form of development in cities, towns, and villages. Whether you or not you agree, I think it's useful to think about what urban design is. Is it a thing? Is it a product? Well, I think it's a process that involves a lot of people, and I'll come back to that in my second session. 2, the professional practice of urban design is not neutral. It either perpetuates or reduces social inequities. So it's in a political process. We're not, we talk a lot about going for quality, but it's quality for whom? Improvements for whom? A road improvement, for which road users? So one thing we need to think about. And linked to that, let's ask of any participative process in whose interest is it being run and who is in control. When I started my career, there wasn't any public participation in planning and urban design, and now there is. There's a whole participation industry. But that means we need to think about who is in control, who has the resources, who is making the decisions. 4, we need objectives of design objectives, and these are familiar. Every urban design policy, every urban design book has a set of these. And I find it useful to think of them in terms of the urban matrix on the right, which Kelvin Campbell and I developed for the government's design guidance, the first design guidance by design in 2000, I think. But I think it's useful to think that there's 2 sort of things we're talking about in urban design. One is those qualities that we're looking for, and the other is aspects of development form, and they're very different sorts of things. The qualities are abstract, they're real, but they're only, they come into being when they're developed in aspects of form. So we think about the qualities, and then the question is, yes, but what sort of form might make those qualities more likely? 5, we can take attempts to reduce our impact on the planet by changing our diet, putting an end to single-use plastic, or flying less, but carbon-based development is building carbon dependency into our way of life for generations. This is just a cry for, let's stop doing it. We're putting into concrete something that is going to be with us. It's urgent that we stop doing it, but we're building stuff that is building in carbon dependency. What we're talking about today, earlier today, understanding context and local character is at the heart of urban design. Character is shorthand for every aspect of a place considered in its context. So urban design is a complex business. We're talking about complexity, and character for most of the consideration of character in urban design and planning makes it sound incredibly simple. And it's one aspect of some local material. It's complex, and that's what urban design is about, dealing with that complexity. 94% of master plans fail. I made up this statistic, but that doesn't mean it's not true. And whenever I speak to groups like this, I say, is it too high or too low? And generally people say, well, about right, 94% of master plans fail. Too low, right, 90, a bit modest. Yeah, so a lot of master plans fail. And they fail for reasons like, the land ownership changes or political control changes, and people think, yeah, okay, that was that master plan, but we want to do something different on this site, so the previous master plan doesn't work. But another reason they fail is because, when we have a site that we're master planning, it's not, and it may look like a site with nothing on it, but actually behind it, there are duties, regulations, policies, guidance, standards, codes of practice, funding regimes, assessment requirements, audits, values, and practices of a whole range of different professions and different type of people. And unless we get to grips with those, our master plan probably isn't going to work. We can draw whatever we like on the plan, but actually what happens on the site will depend on all those things. So we've got to sort out the highway engineers and the codes of practice. Some of them maybe we can't change, but some of them we can change if we're aware of them and if we think of it. So think of master planning as a process of which the master plan is one part. The master plan being, the document we hold up and say, this is the master plan. Well, that may be of no use at all. But if we're thinking of a process, then master planning may work very well. But maybe we don't need master plans. Let's move from the traditional end state master planning, with the idea of trying to create a master plan for development of how the place is going to be in the future. Well, places change in the future. Let's find new ways of enabling many different people and organizations to take relatively small steps in developing an area. After all, that is how much urban development came about until the second half of the 20th century. So we set a framework, building streets, for example, laying out the streets in an area and the movement network, and in time, things would happen if the circumstances permitted it. And we don't know from the start what things are going to happen because we don't know the social, economic, environmental, political background that's going to develop. But if we create a framework, things can happen. These are 3 slides from a book that Kelvin Campbell and I did called the radical incrementalist. So setting out a framework that will allow stuff to happen, and then stuff happens and change is possible. And over time, something will happen that isn't what we expected because we couldn't predict it. Number 9 of my 10 points, what are called design codes, range from a simple set of design principles to a detailed set of precise and prescriptive specifications. Okay, let's use the term design code, which everyone's using these days, but let's admit that it doesn't mean very much. Here's the sort of process that a design code might be, and it's very complicated, and there's a lot of resources and skills needed to make this sort of design code happen. And when it happens, it can be great. But if we haven't got those resources, or if we're not committed to make them happen, or if it's not possible to make them happen, we can call it a design code, but it may not have very much of an impact on what actually happens. Number 10, thinking about density doesn't begin with a number, but with thinking about what building heights and patterns of streets will be appropriate. Density is a measure of the intensity of development in a place, but it shouldn't, and often it seems to be driving urban design. We want high density development here. As urban designers, we should start with the place. That's my 10 things. Thank you.